Welcome back, Inebri-art. This is your faithful host, Andy, and you know that because I introduce myself probably once every other month. And today we have a full Zoom room here. We have Gambler. It's not the Gambler; it's just Gambler, right?
That would be plural. Gamblers.
Gamblers. Okay, all right.
Yeah, it
Sorry,
used to be a solo act for Mike, but then we all joined on, so now it's Gamblers.
okay. I was having to be honest. I had to go like back into the press release uh email to like get over to your YouTube channel because I kept getting like this weird ska band,
Okay.
but it didn't look like they were called the Gamblers either. So it was very weird. So, but
We're not called the Gamblers
it's
either.
just
I don't know.
Gamblers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There you go.
But we do have some ska.
Yeah.
We do have some ska influence, so that might have
Okay.
been us, actually.
We have horns.
Maybe I don't know. It was I don't know. It could have been. So we have Jimmy, Mike, and Johnny from Gamblers. Um, sorry guys that I got that mixed up, but welcome to the show.
Thanks, man.
Hi,
Thanks for
Andy.
having us.
So you guys are New York based, right?
Yes, we are.
Um, so we get a lot of people from like all over the place. I think the last person I interviewed was like from Minneapolis, and I'm always like, what's the music scene like there? Just trying to get a vibe. But I mean, New York's music scene is like super well known. Is it overrated? Like, is it what it should be? Like, how do you guys feel about the scene there in general?
I
You
mean,
know, we came up. I feel like we came up in a big boom of a time for New York music, especially Long Island music. We started out in Long Island. Now we're a little spread out, but Long Island music in early 2000s was definitely a thing. Um, It was a big hardcore and emo indie rock explosion, and we all participated in that in various ways. And so, to me, the music scene on Long Island, in particular, was a big formative experience. It was really happening here. So it felt like if you get a band together, you can get on stage. Um, Now, living as an adult in Queens and going to shows in New York City, it's like the variety is so all over the place that yeah, there's great shows, bad shows, ska shows, punk shows. It's a little bit of everything everywhere. So I'm glad there's that much opportunity, but you still got to have a little bit of your head about you to find the right show and wander into a place that's going to be, good.
Yeah, I find around here it's more um, like there's just not a really huge variety, which is like I'm south of Boston. Um, and it will kind of like go through right now it's more like kind of classic rock types, not just rock in general, I should say. But like for like 5, 6 years it was like jam band after jam band after jam band, which is fine, I guess. I'm not a jam band
Sure.
guy, but it's nice to have options. So
I feel like on Long Island, it's always kind of the same shit. Like it's like emo bands, metal bands, or cover bands, and
yeah.
like I feel like we're like just kind of floating on, no pun intended, like our own island
Yeah.
because there's not, even though it's not like we're the most radical sounding thing in the world. It's like we're an indie rock band at the end of the day, but there's really not a lot of that. And then like with the whole Williamsburg thing in like the early 2010s, like I never really felt particularly close to that. Like I was around it and going to shows and stuff, but it was like it felt like it was more of people that moved to New York instead of people from New York doing that. So it
Yeah.
was like kind of a weird. And then we were a little too young to like. We kind of missed that whole like the Strokes thing, like early 2000s. Like obviously we were there, we were around for it, but we were like teenagers, So it's like I don't know. I've always kind of had a weird relationship with that. Like when people talk about the New York music scene, I'm like, I don't even know what that is, to be honest with you.
Oh, interesting. It's like I always think of like I'm a lot older than you guys, and I think of like CBGBs, and we just did another episode on one of our other shows about a band, not a band, a club in Boston called the Ratskeller, and it was kind of like early punk. Billy Idol played there, and the Ramones, and like all the
Yeah,
up and coming bands. So it's like that's kind of like I always think of like New York as having like their finger on the pulse kind of thing of like what's happening. But
sure, sure. I mean, I feel like watching it over the last few decades of what pops off in like a cultural center like Brooklyn. Yeah, there's stuff that's like maybe ahead of the curve or like it hits here first. And I feel like a lot of noise stuff has been the thing in the past decade. Where you notice about there's an underground movement and you go to these shows and it's like, oh, this isn't the usual show. And I don't know how widespread that is everywhere, but yeah, you can wander in and see some weird like noise shows where people set up, the tables and plug in a lot
and
of gear that looks like, deconstructed guitar pedals.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
So we briefly touched on before the podcast that you guys signed with a new label, and you have a new single out, and I believe Mike was saying that that's not kind of like the standard operating procedure for you guys. So are you working on a new album? Are you planning a new album? Like what's 2025 in store for you guys?
So yeah, it was an interesting thing because like we put out our sophomore album last year, Pulverizer, and we were kind of thinking we would do like the typical like go away for a few years and a couple of years and write and come back with a new fully produced album, which is what we've again typically done. But we got approached by a label out of nowhere and they were like, hey, we'd like to put a single out, and we didn't have a single. We were like maybe going to do some more remixes, which we did a couple of years back. We were like definitely going to stay active, but we weren't in like album mode or anything. And so we said like, well, I mean, we have some demos we could get in the studio and do something. And then that ended up becoming a longer contract as opposed to just the single. So we're committed to dropping a bunch of music with them. And then, we're probably at the end of the day going to have something that we're going to present as a full record, like maybe in a year from now or who knows when. So I think it'll all the new music that we put out will live together again, somewhere. But it won't be for a while. And, we're going like, we did I'll Be Your Boogeyman, and we just went back into the studio and did two more. And now we're back out of the studio, and then we'll go back in, do a couple more. So it's a very like loose process, and we're just kind of rolling with it and having fun.
Yeah. It's so weird how like the music industry's changed now. It almost seems like people have to have something dropping like every like 6-8 weeks, opposed to like
Right.
put out an album and then just walk away. So
Right.
are you guys feeling the pressure to kind of like still do that, or are you guys less like
It's funny. I work in the music industry for my day job as well, and like I feel like everyone, they act like they know what they're talking about, and most people don't. So
yeah,
I think like the whole like, anyone who says like, oh, just release every 6 to 8 weeks and you'll be set. It's like that is not how it works at all. Like, oh, just be active on social media and you'll be set. It's not how it works at all. Like,
yeah,
our biggest hit like was a complete freak accident. Like, no, it was a song that like, yeah, obviously we work hard on everything, but it's not like we saw it coming. And like, I remember the first day it was out, it was like, wait a minute, I think this is saying it was streamed 25,000 times yesterday. Like, what does that even mean? Like, it was just and now it's got 12 something million streams, and it's like, we had barely any promotion behind it. Like, it just kind of took off. Obviously we had like a featured artist on there who was doing really well, and that helped us. Mick Jenkins, shout out to Mick Jenkins. But like, point being, like, anyone who's like, oh, I got the formula figured out. No, you don't. Like, we're all fucking guessing.
yeah,
Yeah, if the question is there pressure there for that? Like, I think it's just constantly paying attention to, hey, here's the trend in releases now. Where do we fit in that if we fit in that? But at the end of the day, it's still got to be like, well, we're doing what we're doing because we like what we're doing in the way that we like doing it. So let's do what we like to do, and then let's find ways that that interfaces with how are kids doing it now. Okay, let's try that, let's approach it that way. But it has to be, you have to have more of a heart than that, than just keeping track with like how are things released now, because it's going to change. It always changes, it keeps changing. So I think for gamblers, like, we grew up listening to albums, we really make albums. The answer is we are in the middle of writing an album because, yes, we started releasing stuff, but it's like, well, that's what we do. So let's see how this release schedule, the structure works out. But pressure, I'm not worried. We're creative people that keep writing, so we'll keep doing that and keep doing our thing. And however that interfaces with the industry, we'll try to stay somewhat current. But I don't feel pressured to.
Yeah. It's always, I feel like industries in general are always chasing what they think the current fad is, and then you have someone
Right.
that comes in and changes everything up, and then they're like, okay, now we're gonna
Yeah.
do this. So
Yeah.
it's almost a no-win situation.
Yeah, chasing trends, that'll get you so far. I think it's good to stay smart, stay somewhat abreast of what the current mode is, but you got to do your thing no matter what. And that means accepting. Like, we put out an album last year, and yes, certain parts of it were pushed as singles, and singles is kind of the king shit right now over albums. So that means those songs got a little more attention. But as artists, we put out the album we wanted, so we're all happy here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like it's really important, like what you were both kind of just saying in different ways, which is like you just have to do it for the reasons that you're doing it, because yeah, things are always going to change. Like, people are always going to give you advice and whatever. And at the end of the day, it's like, for me now, being like, being a band still after all these years, it's like, hey, do we enjoy what we're doing currently? Like, are we having fun? Are we being our best version of ourselves, like creatively and as people, and like getting along, and like all that shit really matters to me nowadays. Like, hey, we could go play shows, we could go put out music, and like people respond to whatever degree they respond. Like, that's a plus, like we're just enjoying being in a band right now.
Yeah, I think you hit on one of the key founding points of Inebri-art, and like we've always said from the beginning, it has to be fun, because it's like in the
Yeah.
beginning you're doing it for like nothing or very, very little, and you're like, if it's not fun, what is the point of doing it?
Yeah.
And it's just served us really well to just kind of be like, if we're having fun, then that kind of carries over to everyone who takes part or everyone who's listening, and it's
Yeah, and I think the term fun can be like, I don't want to have that be misconstrued as like surface level. Like, oh, if it's not fun, like it's like, you know what I mean? It's like the word fun is deeper than that. Like, the word fun is like, satisfying, productive. You feel good. You feel like you have a purpose, like that. And also fun in the sense of like, yes, we are, like, in the literal sense, we're having fun, but it's deeper than that as well.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's a great point. Yeah, because it's like we can do something that is a lot of work, but is really rewarding, and I still kind of like chalk that up to like, yeah, that was fun.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. When you guys are writing music, do you guys have like is there like one person that kind of like focuses on one thing? Like, do you kind of just come together in the studio? Does Johnny talk at all?
Not much.
Not much. No, you're the quiet one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, like, what is your writing process like? How do you guys go about that?
I mean, it's really evolved. Like, the more that the band has evolved, the writing style has evolved as well. And I think, like, for me personally, a lot of that has been not being as much of a micromanager as I used to be in the past, and like allowing, like, not allowing, but like, allowing myself to just trust like my band members and be like, these guys are here for a reason, So like, even like on this last single, like Jimmy wrote the verses lyrically. Like, I've never, there's never been a Gambler song where someone else was writing lyrics, like, except for maybe very, very early on with like a couple of demos, but that hasn't happened in years. But I was kind of stumped on the verses, and Jimmy came with the melody and with the words, and yeah, that works. You know, it doesn't have to be me. So it's just like I think that's the attitude we try to find. We work with a production team called the Brothers Nylon. They used to live on Long Island, and that was like where we did pre-production on our last album. They're down in Florida now, so we'll do like remote sessions with them. We also have a studio that we work really closely on Long Island with our friends Ray and Anthony at Westfall Recording Company. So yeah, it's definitely collaborative, and you know, it could kind of anyone could bring an idea, and if it's a idea that we all like, we'll run with it.
Yeah, we have scheduled writing sessions, which are like come together moments, but it's like creativity can come from anywhere. So, like for me, I feel like a bulk of whatever I contribute to songwriting actually happens while I'm walking around alone smoking and just like writing down ideas or thinking of something and record a little something. That's where like a birthplace of a lot of like ideas are. But then when we come together fairly regularly to in studio settings to like, all right, what do we got? And that's where it's like, you know, wherever a song is, whether we're starting from scratch or we're working on something that's already started, it's very collaborative. And yeah, I think we're in a good flow of we got a bunch of writers in this band, so it's like it feels good to just sit there and shoot ideas back and forth. I think that a hurdle for young bands maybe is like, or really any young creative, or is getting past the stage where you take shit personal. Like, you know, you just talk this idea into existence that you're going to now share with a group, and the group needs to be able to talk about that thing as if it's a thing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you might end up saying like, I don't know, this one's not very dynamic. And that is a great that hey, you just got feedback on your thing. So now we can work with that. Or you can be like, wait, did you just say something negative about a thing that came out of my soul? And that sort of shuts things down. So that's the collaborative part, is being open. And Mike mentioned sort of just trusting the people in the room, feeling like, all right, well, hey, I like this idea, but if three guys didn't like this idea, I'm gonna like pay attention to that, you know. So yeah, there's that.
And that's literally something that just happened. Like we were in the studio last week, and like we had this one part of a song, and I thought it was going to be in the song, and then like Jimmy and the two other engineers were just like, yeah, what if we lost that? And I was like, at first I was like fight or flight, like, what do you mean, blah, blah, blah. And then I was just like, I was like, yeah, fuck it. Like, get rid of it. Like, it's, you guys all feel that way, so obviously that's something. So it's, whereas in the past I might have like dug my heels in a little bit more about shit like that, but life's too short now. It's just like, yeah. But it also matters who you're working with, because you could be in a situation where you don't really trust who you're working with, which a lot of bands find themselves in that situation, which is obviously not good.
Yeah. And that's a really hard skill to learn, is that kind of because I mean, generally when you're creating something, it is personal in some way, and someone to like I think Jimmy said to not take it personal, that it's they're talking about the thing, not you specifically. And,
Sure, exactly.
you know, and then I think when you achieve that skill where you're like, you know, I'm not so precious about it, I'm willing to hear feedback, that those moments when you do dig your heels in, you're like, no, I really think this is the way. Then I think other people are like, all right, maybe, you know, that's
Right.
no.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, you're talking about a real balance. Like we're talking about this as art right now, because, you know, we came to this conversation with Inebri-art, and you guys started with art and art in general. But the thing with music, and especially what I'd say Gamblers works on, which is pop music, it's not just art. It's art and entertainment. It's like an entertainment thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the art thing. I feel like the art label really applies to that thing that came from me personally, and it means something to me personally, and maybe only me personally. But the entertainment angle is like, but also this is for an audience, and we're going to consider them. And like, I want them to have an experience along with you as well, and don't lock them out of your personal experience. So there's such a weird little dance and balance between that. And I feel like our latest single, I'll Be Your Boogeyman, came together that way. It was about like, you know, a lot of the stuff that we've been working on lately it feels like it's about relationships and about failed relationships, and I feel like that's coming from our personal lives. But the thing is, that's a very relatable thing. Everyone's gone through failed relationships, so you get to
What? No,
have
I
both.
haven't. Shut up.
Well, not all of us have been that lucky, um, but you know what I mean? It's like it gets to be like this is really personal to me, and like the lyrics that I'm writing come from personal memories of an actual relationship I went to, and yet I'm choosing the words just so, in that someone else is going to have that same feeling when they listen to it. And I believe that that's the weird blend of pop art, or
Yeah.
art and entertainment, as beyond just expression. It's like considering the audience a little as well and letting them into your experience.
Yeah, and it's essentially you're taking something that is meaningful to you and poignant, like failed relationships, and
Sure.
and on some level putting like a price tag, be someone paying the admission to come see you or whatever. And so it's this very weird, and that's why we started the show is and the more we do it, the more I find out is like, the stand-up comic and the chef and the author are all kind of doing that same thing where they're like
Mhm.
putting themselves out in front of the public and being like,
Sure.
this is usually a heightened version of me,
Yeah.
but please don't hate me. And it's this weird, like, it's a very, it's not normal that people do this.
No, and it creates a connection point across, normal communication barriers. When I was a kid listening to the music I listened to at 16, and I was like, damn, these guys fucking get me, whoever I'm listening to at the time. But they've never met me. They don't know who I am. But I'm like, these guys get me more than anyone. That's the magic of it all. Putting yourself out there. It's like a risk, but then it creates this connection that can happen. That's beyond normal bumping into people connections. It's kind of a special thing.
Have you guys had that kind of opposite experience where like someone has come to you at a show and been like, "You guys so get me"? Like, have you had them turn the tables on you in that way?
Well, I had yeah, well, sometimes someone will ask about like a particular lyric, and you'll either, well, so like on our new song, there's a line that the girl that I'm seeing was asking me about, like kind of grilling me about, because it sounds a lot like I'm talking about another girl,
And you're like, no,
and
no,
I
Jimmy wrote that line.
exactly, exactly. And she's like, "Oh, really?" I was like, "Yeah, you could ask him." I
Yeah.
was like, "You could call him and ask him." And she's like, "Oh, he's just gonna have your back. He's just gonna say that yeah, I wrote it." But I'm like, "No, he really did." But
Yeah.
so sometimes it's funny because like sometimes you'll have, or like with family members, like I've had something that I said in an interview, and then my dad found it. I don't know how. My dad just finds all our shit. He'll just be like, "I'd really appreciate it if you could like not talk about like so and so or whatever." And I'm like, "Dude, how'd you even find that?" Well, that's the risk you run when you're like you share your art or your music or whatever. It's like you might have to answer some questions at some point.
Yeah, I've thought about that. It's because between all three shows, it's like there's some 700 episodes of me out here talking to random people, and
Yeah.
and you're like, "Woof, I wonder if someone sat through all 700, if they'd find like some incriminating thing that I said, and you know, blow
Yep.
me up online like people like to do,
Oh yeah.
Sure.
take it out of context."
Yeah, that's the risk of it, but that's what it takes as an artist. Like this is what it is. You put your shit out there, and it's a vulnerable thing. And look, people are paying a ticket price to come hear you talk about your relationship problems. So I don't know. I guess that's the trade off. Like you wanted this attention, right? All right. Well, now we're listening.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that's the classic, story of the successful actor, musician, comic, whatever, and then they do something, or you know, that they suffer depression, and people are like, I don't understand how they're so successful. And I'm like, yeah, that, you know, they wanted all that success, but then if you're if you suffer from something like depression, it's
Sure,
not because you're depressed because of exactly where you are. You just have that depression. So if you
sure,
find that success, you're still going to be struggling with, you know, being depressed about whatever
yeah,
rich and famous people are depressed about.
sure, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't know.
You know, I would like to have that problem, but you know, um, so, but yeah, there's not podcasting isn't exactly the way to make a fortune.
Got to launch a meme coin, man.
Yeah, doesn't everyone get sued now that does that?
Yeah,
That girl that was viral for like 30 seconds, the Hawk Tuah girl, like launched
Yeah,
one, and then everyone immediately sued her. So
yeah.
yeah, I don't
yeah.
know.
Mike lost a lot in that deal.
I
Sorry, I
lost.
mean,
I lost all $14 in my savings account.
um. So, are you guys currently playing out anywhere? Or
Yeah, we're playing a new Colossus. I don't. When does this come out?
actually, this probably won't be for a while, so it could be like the end of March.
Oh, okay, so we'll be.
I heard that
Well,
was a great show. Was it New Colossal? I heard that
yeah,
was like the
we
best
fucking
show.
yeah, we
New
crushed it.
Colossus,
Man.
man.
It was
Yeah,
New
great.
Colossus.
they
We're
decided they
playing.
needed a new Colossus now.
You're gonna need a new Colossus when I'm done with you.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we're playing New Colossus Festival in the city, which is 2 shows in March, and then we're going on tour in May, I believe. And we're going like all over the fucking place. So that should be good. See if the
Yeah,
rest of our band can make it or not.
yeah.
Oh, we'll be there.
Boston, we're coming. Chicago, we're coming. Nashville, we're coming. DC, we're coming,
Oh, you coming to
and a
Boston?
bunch more.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, you're in. You
Portsmouth.
said you're south of Boston, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
we'll be through.
uh I always say we're based out of Plymouth. We just moved our office a little while ago, but
Oh,
we're right basically like a couple blocks away from Plymouth Rock and the Mayflower and
wow,
you know all that crap. You know,
Nice.
wow, how historical.
yeah, where the people came and stole the land from people, and yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's funny to be proud of Puritans, but that's cool.
Yeah, it's honestly it's funny because there's like two factions in the town. There's like the older people that are like, no, the first Thanksgiving was here. And then there's the younger people who are like, let's not talk about that and
Mm,
focus on like the arts and the food and
sure.
you know everything else that goes on down here. So
I like Boston. We had decent pizza there, and I'm from New York. That we had good pizza in Boston.
Yeah, where did we play? Where did we play? Oh, the Rockwell.
Rockwell.
Rockwell, we played.
yeah,
Yeah,
is that
Where are we going this time? I forget.
I don't know. They're keeping it secret.
see? You mentioned New York pizza, and I have to do my due diligence and make sure that you're aware that Massachusetts does have its own style, but is specifically to the South Shore.
So tell me about this, please, because I'm very
So
intrigued. Are we
it
talking
is
bar pizza?
bar pizza, yeah.
Okay.
That
I had
is
Pizzeria Regina. That's not the same thing.
no, no, not even. So bar pizza is essentially like a small pizza for like one person,
Okay.
and it originated in the South Shore somewhere. That it's one of those. Oh, it started here. No, no, it started there. But the
Yeah.
idea was that it was in small dive bars, so they would keep like the pizza like ready to throw into the oven like pre-made so that the one bartender at the dive bar could kind of do it himself, which
Gotcha.
makes the pizza not really rise, so it's kind of like a really thin crust. And then everyone down here on the South Shore argues about who their favorite bar pizza is, to the point where I actually got to interview Joey Santiago of the Pixies.
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
nice.
And so like I was thanking him for being on the show, and like right before I was about to like end, like I had already stopped recording, and he's like, wait, and I'm like, what? He goes, is Cape Cod pizza in Brockton still the best? And I'm like, I don't know, I prefer Venus and Whitman. And then we start like talking about like it is cultish in the South Shore.
Well, what's the one that I'm gonna walk away remembering? Give me one.
So
I'll take
Venus Pizza in Whitman. Um,
Venus.
yep. Whitman is famous for being the home of the chocolate chip cookie,
Oh,
and Venus is like the greasiest, just best bar pizza in my opinion.
Venus. All right, now we're talking. I like it.
Yeah. So when you guys travel, is that like do you guys take your time to see the sights, or are you like more like let's find out what the food is? Like, what do you guys do?
So the real answer is we plan like very responsible people when we need to be, where, and everything. But I am obsessed with seeing the sights and doing a little bit of things. So I am usually a little bit of part of planning some of this the touring stuff. So when I can, I sneak in visits to whatever the great tiki bar is,
Oh, sure. Yep.
whatever the great pinball. And by the way, in Boston, I've heard it was Woo Song, and we showed up a few minutes before they closed last time, and they didn't let us in. But we'll
I
be
don't
back to Woo Song Tiki.
I
What do
don't
you have a
even
tiki rack?
I don't. The only so the tiki bar thing is fairly new in my scope of interest,
Sure.
and it's because I went out to Vegas with a friend of mine, and
Hell
he's like, "We
yeah.
got to hit up a tiki bar." We went to Frankie's Tiki Room, I think
I've
Frank's.
been to Frankie's.
Yeah,
Frankie's is like a punk rock tiki spot. Yeah.
yeah, it was awesome. I mean, it was the darkest room I've ever been in that had electricity, but it
Yeah,
was
that's off the
fantastic.
strip. It's
Yeah,
like out of there. And they have the little machines at the bar where you can play like video poker.
yep, yeah.
That's punk rock tiki, for sure.
I very
They
much
make
enjoyed
them.
that. So
Frankie's is great.
yeah,
But yeah, I always make sure we get to a tiki bar, and I make sure we get to pinball. We played at Pops in Boston last time,
okay.
uh, but I've heard there's another spot that's pretty good that we'll check out this time.
How many
And I like to check out local food.
how many pinball machines make for a good spot?
I
The
mean, they've
mu-
got to be the right ones, but at least I need at least like 5 to 8, because that means they're gonna have half of the modern ones, which are and then they're gonna throw in some old ones for some weirdos like me.
oh, okay.
Um, but I'm open minded, man. Well, like we'll come to Boston several times. We're not far. We're in New
Yeah.
York, so
So there's Bear Moose Brewery
Bear Moose.
in Everett, which is just outside of Boston.
I'm writing all these down. Thank you.
And they have a dozen or so machines.
Perfect.
Um, I would hazard to say you would consider them all, if not the majority of them, newer machines.
All right.
But they do have a Big Lebowski machine, which I was
I
just
love
like,
that one.
yeah, that was
Rug
super
mode
fun.
activated.
Yeah, so that was anytime we run events up there fairly regularly. I always get there early so I can play some pinball.
Hell yeah. You get me. All right, good. All right, so I'm getting the good Rex. I love this.
um, what about your other guys? Like, do you guys get a say in all this, or are you just stuck playing pinball and drinking tiki drinks, which doesn't sound bad, but
I usually follow Jimmy where he goes, and they always have beer, so I'm happy. He's a good
I
guy.
try to incorporate vegan menu for Mike as well. I try.
that I
I'm
can't help you with.
I'm usually yeah, I'm very lame. I don't eat like normal and I don't party anymore. I'm retired from partying, so I'm usually holding everyone up because I'm coming back from the hotel gym trying to work
Yeah.
up a sweat to get some adrenaline going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, I'm a coffee guy, so like that's really my thing. Like I need to know where it is at
Yeah,
all times. If I know where it is, then my stress goes down. So yeah, as long as I could get like, where were we? We stayed somewhere, and I like walked across. There was like a Dunkin' like across like a busy intersection on a highway. We were like on the hotel, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm going for it. So, I'll brave like the winter and highways and shit to get coffee. But as long as I got that, I'm pretty much all right.
it's funny. My friends this morning were giving me shit because I'm not a coffee drinker, and they're like, "Oh, they're like, when was the last time you had coffee that wasn't Dunkin'?" And I'm like, I don't know if I've ever, like, I couldn't tell
Wow.
you. and they're like, "Oh, it's crap coffee," and I'm like, "Oh, I just assumed that was like the go-to." Around. They're saying this
Nothing
with a
wrong. There's
Dunkin'
nothing
cup in
wrong.
there.
Nothing wrong
I
with it,
like
man.
Dunkin'.
Like when you're on the road, like nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
I mean,
And in Boston.
I have my bougie local spot going on right now, but that's because
yeah.
I'm home. But
Yeah. Well, look, anybody on the road that comes out to see Gamblers, we need tiki wrecks, coffee wrecks, pinball wrecks. Also, I like to go on hikes when I can, like good trails and good vintage shops that might have some records I'm looking for. That's the one thing I like to like. I can't find this vinyl around town, so I'm gonna keep a list on tour and go find some vinyl.
So now I have some recommendations for you,
Mm-hmm.
and one of
All
them
right, I'm back
is
to writing.
all right. One of them is an absolute. You should check it out, and the other one
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if it's still there. But both of these are in Salem. Again, not too
Okay.
far
Okay.
away from Boston. Um, the Record Exchange.
Yeah, I've heard of this.
Okay, I went to college. I went to art school up there, and we used to go to Record Exchange all the time. I haven't been there in years, so I don't know if it's still there. But in Salem Harbor, there is a pontoon boat that they turned into a tiki bar.
wow.
So it only sits like I think like six people. Like last time we went, we just like bought the whole thing out, and then you like tootle around, and there's a corgi dog that like goes out, and he's got like the little lei and Hawaiian shirt, and
Is his name Captain something? Because I need that's
I want to say it is, but
Captain Corgi. Let's just
I
say
might
it
be
is.
making that up because it's been
All
a
right.
while since I went, but it was super fun. And then they just kind of tootle around in the water, and you have tiki drinks, and it's Massachusetts, so when I went, it was like I don't know, 50 degrees out, we're freezing our ass off, but
All
so
right.
super fun. So,
I've written it down. We're gonna do it. Thank you.
so give our listeners a recommendation. Where can they go to listen to the new single, check out your older stuff, all the promo stuff the PR likes?
Well, we have a couple records out in record stores. So like our two full length albums, Small World and Pulverizer, you could get physically if people still do that, like us old people. Other than that, I mean, all the usual suspects. Yeah, and we'll probably put another record out, which you could get physically, but that won't be at least the earliest like next year or the end of this year. But yeah, we'll just be dropping singles, so just look out for those. And we're also big with music videos. We're always dropping music videos, so definitely check out our YouTube channel because we put a lot of time and energy into those. We still believe in them. We grew up in the '90s, so we're albums and music video people.
Yeah, I'm very much that way, and I constantly bitch and complain about how there's no place for people to find new music. They just have to wait for Spotify to that kind of, which I'm sure
Yeah.
my kids are like, shut up.
There's it's a trend, a modern trend as well that bands don't really do a full music video. They'll shoot like 15 seconds worth of a music video. And I get it. We're all watching stuff on our phones all day, and it's 15-second clips. I get it.
Yeah.
But when I see a 15-second clip of a video, and then I can't go see the whole music video, I'm like, oh, I'm so disappointed.
It just seems like so much work to do for 15, like,
yeah,
to pull people together to shoot a video and not. I mean, what are they?
yeah.
Yeah,
we had a famously, yeah, this was coming. We had a
darkest
famous
day of Gamblers history. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a famously horrible content shoot day with our former manager, who we're not with anymore, and he brought in a create. Well, let me not do that. Oh, too late. He brought in a creative director, and hopefully he doesn't see this, but if he does, whatever.
You get what we're saying.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough. It was like trying to like make a bunch of old guys do like 18-year-old TikTok shit. We were pretty good sports about it, but it wasn't our bag. It wasn't our cup of tea. And but again, right? Like back to the beginning of the conversation, like it's like we also can't roll over and die and just be like, oh, we're boomers or we're old. Like this is just how it is. It's like, no, like we have a lot of, talented friends that really didn't evolve with the times in terms of like well, I guess just being, too stuck in your ways about like how you put music out. And then, I always say too, because I work in music for my day job, it's like, this is a choice that we're making to be still doing this, right? Like, yes, it
Right.
is a
Right.
passion, it's a hobby, it's a passion, it's a love, all of that for sure. But to engage in the level that we're engaging in and putting out music, it's like, well, don't act like anyone's forcing you to do that. Like this, you are choosing to be in
Yeah.
this universe, so you kind of have to do it, adapt at the same time. So we try to strike that balance, and I think we're pulling it off, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's you. I think the smart way to do it is take what you think is good from the old stuff and take new ideas that you think are good and try to run with them. And if you don't think they're worth your time, then don't do it till someone
Yeah.
forces you to.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's just always that weird dance and balance between self-expression and audience, and just thinking and just considering an audience.
Yeah.
Do I want to be so in touch with myself and expressive of myself that the audience might not even understand? That's fine. If you need to express that deeply, great. And sometimes that fucking works out because you found out, oh, a lot of other people felt this way and I didn't know that. And then there's sometimes when you really consider an audience and how to reach that audience, and you go, okay, great. So here's how we meet in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's all up to you as the artist to decide where you fall in there. So, that's why I love the album art form. I feel like you get all of that, like a single is a little more designed towards outreach, and then something that doesn't have the pressure of a single on it is a little more about just pure expression. And I love it all mixed together there.
And to me, that's like when you find someone who truly connects with the band specifically because they're like, yeah, I mean, that single's fine, but I really like
Sure.
whatever song. Um,
Yeah.
for me, it's Stone Temple Pilots Still Remains. It wasn't a
Ooh,
single, but it's a great friggin' song. And
cool.
because that band, hit me at the right time in life, and I'm significantly older than you guys, so. But yeah.
You keep saying that. I wonder if that's true. How old are
I
you?
know. I'm pulling it
So
off. I love
so
it.
I'm very sensitive about this because I just had a birthday last month and it was a big
Okay.
one, and I'm like not loving
Did
it.
it have a 4 in front of it or a 5 in front
It
of
had
it?
a 5 in front of it and a big old
Wow.
0.
Oh.
So yeah,
Okay.
it's
Okay, you won
all
the
right.
contest, but I still remember STP.
yeah. It was, and my youngest is turning 21 this year, so
Mm,
this year is like a year
wow.
where I'm just like, wow, I can't pretend anymore. I'm getting up there.
Do you guys
Well,
talk about music? Do you connect at
Uh,
all on
yeah.
music?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So my youngest Zoe and my son Liam. Liam will be 23 this year. We talk about music a lot. My youngest is very much into art, so we talk about that a lot. And the Muppets. Apparently,
Hell yeah.
like I put the Muppets on them for when I was little. When I was little, I put it on because I enjoyed it, and it is
Yeah.
like, a thing for them now, and I didn't
The
realize
Muppets
it.
transcend. Yeah.
Yeah, man, it
this
is.
just came up. It's so weird you mentioned that because this just came up for me. But like, remember the Muppets Kokomo, like
Yes.
the Beach Boys
Yeah,
cover?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's so weird that that came up.
But I mean, that's
Um,
the thing is it's like the perfect combination of like performance, art, and music, and it's so like unbelievably wholesome that like anybody can watch it. But then
Yeah.
they work in jokes in there that like go over the kids' heads, and it's kind of pretty perfect in an art form.
I live in Queens, and anytime, when you live in New York City, anytime anybody visits New York City, it's your job to see them around a little bit.
I
Yeah,
know.
So at this point, I'm at an age that starts with a 4. So a lot of my friends have kids,
yeah,
and in Queens is a great. I mean, it's really a museum dedicated to movies and TV, but they have a permanent Jim Henson exhibit. So they have this is in Astoria,
yeah,
the Museum of the Moving Image. They have all the original. It's like Big Bird is there. You can go see
yeah.
Big Bird. It's like I go there every couple of months, honestly, because people come visit with their kids, and I go, I know exactly where we're going, and I take them there, and it's all the Muppets, and it's all Sesame Street, and it's mind blowing every time. Yeah, just to throw praise on all that, it's like entertainment that can still work decades later. It works for adults. It works for kids. Wow,
Yeah.
I'm so impressed.
I got to interview. Do you guys know what Master Replicas is?
Master Replicas?
Yeah, so it's like it's not even a toy company. It's like a company that caters towards nerds, and I mean that in a very loving way.
Yeah.
But they'll make like lightsaber replicas and replicas of like Frodo's sword, but they're like to a very high level exactly what the real thing is like. And I got to interview someone who worked for them, and they were working on a master replica of Kermit the Frog. So they flew him out, and he got to tour like the Henson Studios, and like I was just in awe. And they asked me if I wanted one of Big Bird's feathers, and he's like, I just spent the rest of the time like walking around holding this feather like it was like some sort of like ancient artifact. And I'm like, yeah, I totally get that. So
sick,
cool. But quick, see, I told you it goes off the rails. But what was the website in case anyone wants to see you guys in the upcoming tour? They can find out where you guys are going to be playing.
Gamblersmusic.com.
Okay, so listeners, go to gamblersmusic.com. Find out when these guys are coming to your town. Bring them a map to the nearest tiki bar and pinball machine.
Thank you.
And yeah, guys, I'll have to see when you guys are coming to Boston. I'll have to try and get there.
That'd be great.
Yeah, man. We're coming in May.
In May.
And we are legally bound to say that if you have a gambling problem, just go to gamblers.com. They're going to help you out there.
Is that what gamblers.com is? It's like
It is.
Oh, that's funny.
And our lawyers said we have to say that every podcast we're in now. So.
Outstanding. Well, thank you guys again so much. And listeners, we'll see you guys back next week.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. Thanks again for listening.